Tesla stock is down over 1% today. This news may be spooking investors. Robin Denholm sold 93,705 shares of Tesla stock on March 12th. She sold at an average price of $175.44 for a total transaction of $16.4 million. She now only owns 15,000 shares of Tesla, worth about $2.6 million. So she sold about 85% of her total position in Tesla within the last 2 months. Now, before you go off the deep end, let's acknowledge something. There can be 1,000 different reasons why someone wants to sell a stock. You can want to buy a boat. You're getting divorced, your kids are getting married, you want to go on a vacation, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on and on. Taxes, that's another big reason. And that timing does kind of line up with a potential tax bill that was coming due. Point is, it's definitely not a definitive kind of recognition that the vote this 13th, this Thursday, is going to fail, but it's not bringing investors any comfort either, and just maybe is spooking investors a little bit today. Yahoo Finance wrote this article today, how shareholders are voting on CEO's pay. They acknowledge that there is mixed support coming out from major shareholders in Tesla. Last week, you had Barron Capital's Ron Barron saying vote yes to let Elon have his money. They own about 0.5% of all Tesla stock outstanding, but then you had Norway's sovereign wealth fund, that's a 1% stakeholder, come out and say to vote no. They say the results of the vote will ultimately come down to asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard that tend to support management in these initiatives and have a significant stake in the company. When you start adding those together, that's what is going to make the actual difference. And let's just think about this logically. If you vote no to not pay Elon Musk, then you risk your entire investment collapsing. Elon Musk could leave Tesla, take the top talent with him, and move AI somewhere else. I don't think if you're Vanguard or BlackRock, whether you like Elon or not, I don't think you want to self-sabotage your investment. 40.21% of the company's stock is owned by institutional investors, 13.66% is owned by insiders, and 46.13% is owned by public companies and individual investors. Of those institutional investors, Vanguard owns 7.3% of Tesla stock, and BlackRock owns almost 6% of Tesla. So I think that's correct. Whether this passes or not, it will come down to BlackRock and Vanguard. Go figure. They pretty much own everything. But let's get into your other Tesla stock news today. Tesla is offering 15,000 free supercharger miles to anyone in the UK who buys and takes delivery of a new Tesla by June 30th. And 15,000 miles in the UK is a lot. That's roughly about 2 years of the average driving in the UK. Following CalSTRS, CalPERS also expressed its intention to oppose the Elon compensation package. CalPERS stands for California Public Employees Retirement System. They manage about $469 billion in assets under management. CalPERS owns $1.67 billion in Tesla, making it one of the company's top 25 shareholders. South Korea imported 5,876 electric vehicles in May. Tesla accounted for the largest portion, about 71%, with 4,165. Tesla will begin test drives of its Model 3 Performance in Scotland and Northern Ireland this weekend. Experience the best engineering with a test drive and buy a vehicle, and I think that's the ultimate point. This is a video posted on Weibo. It says, after this latest update to the Baidu map in China, some people removed their phone holders, and this is a good review to hear. However, some users experience a slight delay whenever they change lanes on Baidu map, and I hope this gets better in the future. That is an opinion from Tesla Chan. Which Tesla just recently got these updates for the Baidu maps over in China, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of updates to come. Again, I will point out what Gary Black said on X yesterday that I reported in the last video, but in kind of the context of what we're going over here now, I think it should also be said that if 90% of 46% of investors who are retail support it, Tesla needs just 16% of institutional fund managers to back it to reach 50.1% total, yes votes in order to pass this proposal. Over on StockTwits, it appears retail investors are pretty dang bullish on Tesla today, with an overall sentiment score that is bullish at 56. Yesterday, it was neutral at 47. Message volume today is a little bit on the higher side, considered normal, but higher than yesterday at 45. Yesterday, you were at 36, and the participation ratio today is high at 56. Google Trends data is really starting to move higher again for the Tesla lineup. This includes all of your Tesla products. The Model S and the Model X, they don't do too much on a day-by-day, week-by-week, or month-by-month basis, but the models that are really important are starting to move upwards again. The Cybertruck going from 71 to 77, and keep in mind, this is organic search trend activity. This is not investors searching about the Cybertruck. These are prospective buyers or people seeing the Cybertruck out on the road, Googling it. And that's got to be good for Tesla. If it's not a net positive right now for deliveries, which I'm sure it's a net positive, it will become an even larger net positive over time. And I think that is something that not a lot of investors are considering right now. Albeit, you do have the Model Y going from 30 to 31. The Model 3 is seeing a bigger rise from 22 to 25. The Model S and the Model X staying the same at 11 and 9 respectively. So overall, I mean, there's really no better way to judge what Tesla demand looks like, in my opinion, than Google Trends. And Google Trends are sustainably at higher levels than they have been at least the last 12 months. I mean, you could scroll this out if you want as well and look over the past 5 years, and you really haven't seen any trend data that looks even close to this recently, especially when you look at the Model Y. The Model Y hit the highest point you have seen since January of 2023, when it hit 28, which was actually higher than the peak here when it only hit 27. So I think you could be in for a real surprise when we get Q2 delivery numbers, and that likely continues into Q3 as well. Google Trends data for full self-driving as well is sitting at 22, which is kind of baselined out between 21, 22, here's a low of 18, but this is still trending a lot higher than where you were before this free trial, where you were anywhere from 7 on the low side to 16, 19, 18 on the higher side. So that's a good sign that take rates are probably higher now for full self-driving than they were before. Global inventory numbers for the Tesla lineup do show a slight uptick for the Model Y, up to about 5,500. The Model X is at about 4,000 vehicles in inventory, and the Model S is at about 2,600 in inventory. You've recently seen quite a spike here in global inventory numbers for the Model S and the Model X. A continued fall for the Model 3 from 3,400 down to where you are now at about 2,900, and the Model Y is off quite a bit from its highs at about 9,700 down to about 5,500, which inventory falling is always going to be a good thing for a company. And Tesla continues to run about 4,000 different ads with Google. Here today, you do have 41.76% of all stocks above their 50-day moving average. You're actually seeing about half of 1% of all stocks on our markets today falling under that 50-day moving average. So it is another rough day for generalized markets. As you can see recently, as of mid-May, you were at about 63% of all stocks above their 50-day moving average, and now you're at a little less than 42%. So even though markets have been chugging along, hitting higher highs, well, it's not actually that good under the surface. Your latest AI investor sentiment survey shows 39.0% of investors are bullish, 29.0% are neutral, and 32.0% are bearish, which is the highest level of bears you have seen in quite a while. Nvidia has started trading post stock split, and the stock is up 1.3%. I think Nvidia is a close one to watch this week, because what tends to happen after a stock split is you do see some selling. Some investors that were just trading this, or maybe I should say traders, they can sell out of those positions. So something to keep your eyes on, especially as we get later into the week. When we get Broadcom earnings, that could be a catalyst for some selling. As you can see, AMD is down 4% today, and that could be a leading indicator to what could come for Nvidia, but that's obviously not a guarantee to happen. And there is kind of this overall rush to safety in Nvidia. It's kind of strange to think about that, but if rates stay higher for longer, Nvidia, if we go into a recession, Nvidia, right? That's kind of the overall narrative, because AI is here to stay. Companies presumably are going to continue to spend on AI. Now, in fact, when you get Jerome Powell this week and CPI, if CPI comes in lower than expected and Powell is more dovish than expected, you may actually see that be a negative for Nvidia, because that means other stocks may have a tailwind to go higher, and thus you could see capital leave Nvidia and go into other areas of the markets. If things start to look better and the soft landing starts to become more obvious and inflation's falling and the Fed starts to cut rates. Option activity in Tesla stock today looks pretty positive. You are seeing some more speculative options trading, especially to the upside today, whereas you're not seeing a lot of downside speculation in Tesla stock. And what I mean by that is you're not seeing a lot of puts being bought that are out of the money. You are seeing a lot of large put trades that are being bought deep in the money, 250, 260, 270, $300 puts, and that is really just to hedge for this shareholder meeting. It's not necessarily bearish, but you are seeing some relatively bullish out the money call activity, like this January 16th, 2026 230 call worth a little bit over $900,000, just to point out one of them. Now, expiring this Friday, on the call side, you have open interest of 66.1%, open interest on the put side of 33.89%. So there are more calls for this Friday than there are puts, and volume today is 57.63% calls, 42.37% puts. Tesla's short interest of free float remains at multi-year highs, 3.78%, with $18.59 billion currently sold short in the stock. That is equal to about 105 million shares. So every $10 Tesla stock goes up, short sellers lose $1.05 billion. Every $10 the stock falls, short sellers make over 1 billion. So I do think coming by this shareholder meeting, by this Thursday, you're going to get a lot of volatility in Tesla stock, let alone the market maker short positions that have had to be put on recently in recent days because of all of the hedging activity taking place in Tesla. You could see 200 million shares that are short that potentially could be fuel on the fire to send the stock higher. Now, as I've said before, on a technical basis, I'm not expecting much until the shareholder meeting. Today, Tesla stock's down 1.75%. Again, I think some investors might be spooked because of Robin and her coincidental selling of Tesla stock. Do I think that means the vote is not going to pass? Absolutely not. I still think there's an over 75% chance the vote does go through and Elon's comp package is reinstated. Now, obviously, there's going to be a court process with that, and it's not a set in stone, done with situation after June 13th, but it's going to be pretty hard to shoot down the comp plan again if it's voted for and approved with all of the added disclosures. And again, already going through this court proceeding, the judge shot it down to begin with because she said back in 2018 investors were not aware of what they were voting for. And I think now you are fully aware of what you're voting for if you are actually voting. Like, how could you make that argument, right? You couldn't make that argument now. So I think the markets will look at it like it's over with coming on June 13th, no matter what happens, whether it gets shot down or it goes through. I think the markets will take that as, yep, it's reinstated, or nope, it's not. So I know there's going to be some people that say that, and I've heard people, comment that it's not over with on June 13th. From the market's perspective, it will be. And now you can see, as I've said before, Tesla is just trading in this range between support at the 50-day moving average and resistance at the 100-day moving average. Support around 172, resistance around 180. Technically, it's at 179.69 today, but it's been around the low 180s for a while now. Really just bouncing right around this 20-day moving average. After this Thursday, that's when I'm expecting to get a big break to the upside or a big break to the downside. And I think it's going to be a lot bigger than what a lot of people think as of right now. I mean, options are only pricing in about an 8% move coming by next Friday, and I think we're almost guaranteed to do that on Thursday, if not Friday alone. I'm expecting a 10+% move in either direction. And that's why I do think it makes sense to have some hedges on your position if you are worried about the way this vote could go, or potentially have some upside exposure as well. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner, and I don't have a crystal ball, but there's going to be a lot of volatility and potentially a lot of money to be made. When there is a lot of volatility, that's when you tend to make the most. Tesla's RSI is sitting at 48.5, which is slightly under neutral, but in the grand scope of things, pretty neutral. And your MACD line is kind of curling downwards. It's still positive overall, but definitely starting to curl lower. So let me know what you think about all of this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And if you want to come trade with us live in real time, check out that link down below in the description of this video. I did make a trade on Tesla today, so if you want to see that, check that link out down below. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.